As a former self-described insomniac, I used to treat sleep like a part-time job at Walmart. I clock in at 3 a.m. just mess around during my shift being my sleep, and clock out in the morning. And I just not feel rested at all. I'd be up, restless. I'd have less restless leg syndrome, and it would just be a bad night's sleep. It came to a point where I spent more money on DIY solutions on the internet than actually just purchasing a new mattress. So in this video, I'm just going to talk about all the DIY sleep hacks that work, that didn't work. Um, so you don't have to do that. You don't have to waste your time doing what I did. So let's just start with it. So let me paint a picture of my former insomniac self. I would have my desperation phase where it would be 1 a.m. or midnight or 2 a.m. or whatever. I try everything from melatonin to Benadryl to eventually just counting the cracks on the ceiling to even counting my breaths, which people say it works. It works sometimes, but for the most part, it just didn't work for me. Then there was the weird phase, which involved trying every app imaginable, expensive, like quick fixes, like blue light glasses, very expensive, by the way, if you want to get the right ones, and just anything else that you can imagine. Then there was the I'll try anything phase, which spanned anything from mouth tape. I wouldn't actually get the mouth tape. I just put scotch tape over my mouth because I didn't want to buy tape that's $10. Cooling pads, weighted blankets, and just like things in that category. It felt like some nights I did everything right, but I just end up counting the cracks on the ceiling. Luckily, I did eventually reach a turning point. It took longer than I wanted to, but I did reach it where I realized that I was treating the symptoms, not the actual underlying problem. I was just putting band aids on top of band aids, and it wasn't fixing anything. I didn't need quick hacks that are easily marketable on Instagram or whatever social media. I needed a system, and I needed a system that actually works. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about that system in this video. If you're interested, you can check it out at Nubai.store right here. I just released a full sleep toolkit that details my process and just things that can help you when you're stuck at night, just unable to sleep at 3 a.m., at 9 p.m. If you want to develop like an ideal sleep hygiene routine, what things to do, things not to do, all that stuff. If you're curious, it's right here somewhere. I'm gonna put it right there. But let's get started with a tier list. All right, so let's start with the F tier. These are things that actively made my sleep worse. It had like the inverse effect of wanting to get good sleep. One of those things is trying to catch up on sleep, trying to catch up on your sleep debt, which I talk about in the toolkit, but sleep debt isn't really a real concept. You can't really catch up on your sleep. In fact, it takes 2 weeks of consistently good sleep to catch up on one night of poor sleep. So I try to catch up on a week's worth of poor sleep by sleeping in over the weekend. And when you disrupt your circadian rhythm that much of over 30 minutes to 45 minutes, it just has adverse effects. You just ruin your sleep for the long term. So that's definitely on the F tier, somewhere here. And the second thing is working in bed. When you need rest, you need rest. I try to trick my mind and body by working in bed, resting my body, but activating my mind. And I just would not rest. I'd feel foggy in the head the next morning, restless still. Don't do that. That's also in the F tier. You can't trick your mind into getting rest by resting your body. You can't do it. Now this next category is the D tier. Somewhere over here. It's why did I do this tier? Why am I doing this to myself? The first thing is melatonin. Melatonin is such a slippery slope that you can fall into. It's helpful in like 1 to 3 milligram doses every once in a while if you completely cannot fall asleep. But when you take it habitually for like 3 days consecutively, your body builds a tolerance to it, obviously, and you need more and more of it. And when you take it enough, you have these insane fever dreams that just aren't worth it. I was having sleep paralysis, nightmares every other night. It's not worth it. If you're having a one-off night where you've tried everything but you can't sleep, take 3 milligrams of melatonin, but when you take it all the time, trust me, it has the opposite effect. The other thing in this D tier are the sleep tracking obsessions. Now, there's some value in tracking your biometric data to make sure that you have good sleep and you're tracking it well. Um, but when you're obsessed with it, it actually has the opposite effect. At least it did for me. And this may be like a personality thing, but I think there's data backed behind this of like being way too obsessive on the numbers for your sleep. Um, and that obsessiveness gets in your head. It makes you have more poor sleep. That's what happened to me for weeks. So I don't recommend this. There's other ways you can track your biometric data for other things like running, exercise. I don't recommend it for sleeping. This again could be a personality thing, but it did not work for me. This next tier is the C tier, and it is the overpriced but harmless, ultimately harmless tier. These are things that I tried. They didn't really have the opposite effect, or like I wasn't in a desperate state, but they just didn't really have any positive effects either. They were just neutral, didn't really do anything. One of those things were the plethora of sleep apps that I tried, all of which require some kind of subscription model. They have cool UI, cool like gamification features on it, but for the intention of fixing your sleep, it did not work. In fact, going on an app before you're trying to sleep to make sure you have good sleep, you just get all that blue light in your face, and it didn't work for me. It also falls into the category of like tracking your biometric data. I do not recommend it. The other thing is purchasing expensive blue light glasses. Um, you can get cheap ones on Amazon for like $15. They don't really do anything. But the ones that apparently actually work can go up to 50 to over $100 for the name brand blue light glasses. What honestly worked more than anything, instead of just purchasing these expensive glasses, which I borrowed from a friend because I wasn't going to purchase it, was putting the settings on your phone on any device really into the orange light feature or the night light feature, which reduces the blue light that's emitted from the screens at that period of time. That worked, but do not get blue light glasses because it that did not work. Now, this next tier is the B tier. It is the nice to have tier. These are things that did work. It wasn't like significant as far as the effect that it had, but it did have some change. It did cause some change in my sleep. It's worth listing here, and it's worth considering purchasing or investing time into, if you are desperate enough and if you want to try everything. These are the nice to have things. The first thing are comfortable pillows. Having a nice, comfortable pillow, just the initial drop of your head on the ground, that initial 5 to 10 minutes when you're trying to fall asleep, it actually is pretty effective to invest on a good, comfortable pillow for those instances. The other thing are the plethora of sleep podcasts, white noise, pink noise, brown noise, whatever color noise you want to choose. It works. It did have nights where it worked for me when I was desperate enough. I don't think it was something that I relied on a consistent basis, but there were several nights where I was desperate enough and I tried it, and it did work to some extent. The other thing is reading before bed, or just any activity that's tedious, that requires focus but not too much cognitive ability, like reading literature, for example, that doesn't involve a screen, is going to make you fall asleep more easy. I've done reading in a book or on my phone with the orange or nighttime light effect on it, and it did help me. So instead of picking up your phone and scrolling, maybe scroll through my toolkit or read a book. It definitely helps. Now, this is the A tier. These are the solid supporting cast for DIY hacks or things to do to try to improve your sleep. They work. They aren't elite as far as ensuring and guaranteeing long-lasting solutions for fixing your sleep, but they definitely work. And it's something that you should do, that I've done, that have helped me for improving your sleep. So one of those things is cooling your room. This is dependent on how warm or cold your body runs, even the time of year it is. But having a temperature between 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit is the ideal temperature range for you to induce sleep and to induce the release of melatonin endogenously in your body. So cool your room to that temperature range and see what effect it has. It's actually a game changer. The next thing is to black out everything. Do not allow even a smidgen, even a little bit of light to show up in your room. Turn the blinds out, turn off all the lights, any creeping light that you see, turn it off. It's very effective and it helps regulate your circadian rhythm. When you see any kind of bright light, it can trick your mind and thereby your body into thinking the day has started. It can just mess up your circadian rhythm. So block out everything. The last thing is just basic magnesium glycinate, not magnesium, magnesium glycinate. I learned that difference. One has the effect that I want. The other one doesn't really. I'm not going to get into the science of it, but if you're going to purchase magnesium, either purchase magnesium glycinate, which is the more bioavailable version of magnesium for your body to process so that you fall asleep and so that it converts into melatonin, or just eat magnesium rich foods. A lot of greens and nuts have it, like spinach or almonds, for example. Other foods that are magnesium rich are on the toolkit if you want to check it out. Yeah, that's it for this one. Let's go to the S tier. Now, this is the S tier of sleep hacks. These are things that are kind of difficult to habituate. They require a lot of discipline and the most significant lifestyle changes. But if you're able to habituate these, I don't even have these on deck. But in the periods of time where I was able to get these done, I had the best sleep, like hands down the best sleep. So if you're able to do this, you should 100% do it. There's a reason why it's on the S tier. So the first thing is easy and doable for most people, but it's a duo. You know, when you wake up, get morning sunlight directly in your eyes. You don't have to look directly in the sun, but get that sunlight in your face and around your eyes to reset your circadian rhythm. The other thing is, in conjunction with that, do something in the morning that elevates your cortisol level, whether it's like push ups or stretching or splashing cold water in your face. Look into things that spike your cortisol right in the morning, because it allows your body to release adenosine uh, throughout the day so that you fall asleep more easily at nighttime. It's great for resetting your circadian rhythm. So definitely get some sunlight on your face. The other thing is to have a consistent sleep and wake up time. Do not fall into the sleep debt, catching up the sleep trap. If you wake up at a certain time, do so every day. Even on the weekends, you can have a difference of like 30 to 45 minutes, but don't wake up at 6 a.m. on the weekday and wake up at 9 a.m. On the weekend. You're going to mess up your circadian rhythm and you have to reset the process over the week. I don't recommend it. Uh, but yeah, the other one is the most difficult. I haven't really been able to implement this in my life on a regular basis, but if you are, do it, because when I have, it's been life changing, and that is the 3-2-1 rule. The 3-2-1 rule is simple. It basically states that 3 hours before bed, do not have any food, right? Have a big dinner or whatever you need to before that time, 3 hours before. So if you go to sleep at 11, uh, don't have a big meal after 8 p.m. Or yeah, I know, yeah, 8 p.m. And for 2 hours before bed, do not do any intensive work, even exercise. Don't do intensive exercise, specifically exercise. You can do light stretches, a little bit of yoga if you want to, if you're into that, but don't do intensive work or intensive exercise. It's going to have the opposite effect. And 1 hour before bed, no screens, no screens at all. This is the part that I struggled with the most, actually, because I like working on stuff. I like texting people, whatever. But if you're able to do this, it's really going to have life changing effects, I think, on your sleep, and guaranteeing that you have good sleep most nights, if not every night. So that's it for the tier list. I hope it helps whoever's watching this video. If there's really any secret, it's that hacks don't work. There's a reason why all the tiers from F to C weren't that effective because hacks don't work in life. You don't need a hack. You need a system, a reliable system that actually works. And the other thing is, and I just use this as a mantra because it really applies to everything you do. Consistency beats intensity every time. You don't need perfect nights all the time, but as long as you focus on doing what you can as consistently as you're able to, 9 times out of 10 you're going to get better sleep. Now, if you are currently where I was, just like the desperate state for sleep that I was at, just pick one thing from the S or A tier of from this list and try to do it as consistently as possible, and try to develop your own system. Pick and choose what does and doesn't work. Now, again, I have the entire system for my sleep toolkit that worked for me and that allowed me to develop this entire toolkit and this means of having consistent sleep. It's in the link in the bio if you are curious. But choose the easiest set of things that are easier for you and start there. Try to be as consistent as possible. And that's the only piece of advice, really, from a former insomniac that I can give for getting better sleep. Anyways, that's it for this video. I appreciate you watching. Let me know in the comments which ones work for you, which ones that are unique to you that work for you, and which ones from the list that work for me that maybe don't work for you, or that you want to give a try. Just let me know. Anyways, appreciate you watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.